Verse 220. The past and the future, Nirvana, a personal ego, space, words. Of these I talk because of worldly convention, but ultimate reality is beyond the letter. There are a lot of words in Buddhism. And one phrase which comes up now and again is, since beginningless time. The idea of this cycle of transmigration. We've been caught up in it since beginningless time. And what makes Indian thinking different from that of what might have been going on in ancient Greece amongst the Greek philosophers was their basic assumption. Although there was a huge variety of points of view in ancient India, most of them subscribed to the understanding that this was our situation. We were caught up in this endless cycle. I think there were some philosophers who didn't subscribe to this, but by and large, this was it. And the whole point of philosophy, the whole point about this speculation was how to escape from this cycle. But what the Buddha seems to be saying here is past and future, Nirvana. So the Buddha is just buying into this way of talking. And this is what you've got to do if you want to communicate. You have to latch on to people's way of thinking and then nudge them out. Try to nudge them out of it. So we've got this past, whether you believe it begins with this life or previous lives, which ultimately ends in some kind of future nirvana, hopefully. A personal ego, space. Well, we've got this idea of this self here and a world out there, and there's this space between. There's this amazing projection going on, which assumes then that there's something out there being experienced by somebody here. Words, these are ideas and so on. So the Buddha will use these. But as we're going to find out in the next verse, we shouldn't be spending our time trying to mentally adjust to these ideas. We need to see where they're pointing. And they are pointing to something which we're constantly overlooking, which we have a dynamic habit of overlooking. And again, this is our essential awareness. This is what we're missing. And even if we do come to it, we need to appreciate it. And we need to see beyond the tone of our habitual thinking. So this is the ultimate reality. It's beyond the letter. Verse 221 tells us, the two vehicles and the philosophers are one in their dependence on views. They are confused in regard to mind only, and imagine an external existence. So the two vehicles are often understood as the Shravakas. These are the ones that study the Buddhist texts, the followers of the Buddha, and the Pratchika Buddhas, who I think are unjustly maligned, as the next verse will point out. But in a footnote, the translator, Professor Suzuki, tells us that the two vehicles literally means they who belong to the Nikaya. So these are the ones that are trying to get their heads around the verses, around the texts. And that's not what it's about. This is what the philosophers do as well. I sometimes feel obliged to study Western philosophy because there are some very, very clever and insightful writings, I'm sure. But it seems like such an effort, and I'm not quite sure it's going anywhere clearly. But I kind of think, well, why study it when we've got these texts already which spell it all out? That have originated mainly from the subcontinent. When we've got this, why bother with something which may or may not be as good or as penetrating? The only reason I might read it is if it's enjoyable. Nietzsche looks like he's quite readable. Anyway, so those devoted to the texts, the philosophers and the philosophers are one in their dependence on views. Now the translators put in brackets wrong views, dependence on wrong views, but really it doesn't matter whether it's a wrong view or a right view. We're not interested in views at all. They are confused in regard to mind only. If you've got any view about this, then it's missing the point. Mind only is another statement of realization. It means only awareness. Like the dream awareness, like the awareness in a dream. All the objects in the dream are of the same nature as dream. The dream awareness, or simply awareness. This is how it is, this is how consciousness operates. It's this one awareness, imagining an external existence. So this is the confusion. The confusion is imagining an external existence rather than realizing the mind only, this singular awareness, both single and singular awareness that underpins everything. This is what we come back to as enlightenment practitioners.